let's just go ahead and kind of jump in and talk about the main themes from today, what was talked about. Then we'll talk about some interesting things to note. Then we'll talk about some temple predictions, etc., as we typically will do. Also, I do have a celebratory cinnamon roll here as well, because that's how it does go. Anyways, so let's just go ahead and jump in. So the main themes that I kind of saw, I'm just going to kind of briefly skim over these really quick. And these are just some of the main themes that I saw, okay, throughout the 3 sessions that we had today. And those were the need to belong and take care of those who may not belong. So that's kind of like the main big one. There's a few talks that talked about the need for other people to feel like they belong in the church, and for us to feel like we also have a spot, that we belong, that we are a child of God. Those were very prevalent themes in today's general conference. Another one was repentance. Another one was peacemaking. Another one was invitations to come back to the church. That's been one recently that's been emphasized a little bit more. And then another one I was able to pick out was the need to make intentional steps and not just treat the gospel like a checklist. Okay, we talk a lot about that on this channel as well, making sure that we are taking those intentional steps, as President Nelson calls them, for us to make progression. Right, so that's kind of like what the main themes were talked about today in today's session. Some other things of note which I found interesting, a lot of things that we didn't know going into General Conference, especially with President Nelson's death and the Michigan shooting. We didn't exactly know how everything was going to play out, especially since it happened a week right before General Conference. One of those things that we didn't know about was, now that President Nelson's dead, the first presidency is dissolved. How is that going to work now? How's that going to happen, right? You know, is there going to be a new solemn assembly that's held where we're going to have a new first presidency happening before the funeral service for President Nelson? Okay, historically that hasn't really happened too often or too much, but you know, there's always first start everything. But there was a few things that were talked about in the Saturday morning session that kind of clarified some things. Okay, and I'm grateful that President Eyring and President Oaks, Elder Eyring and President Oaks now, went ahead and talked a little bit about this. Okay, so here are a few things of note. Okay, so a solemn assembly won't be held to sustain a new first presidency. President Oaks will still remain the president of the quorum until they have some time to mourn over President Nelson's death, then go to the temple and be able to commune and talk about, if a first presidency needs to be reestablished and how that will all work. Okay, and then eventually a solemn assembly will be held sometime in the future. Okay, there has been some hintings that that will be the case, so we'll see. You know, we still have President Oaks in charge of the church right now, at least holding the role of president of the Quorum of the 12. So we'll see how that works, okay? Something that I'm not entirely sure about is how tomorrow's afternoon session is going to go. Because President Oaks said in his introductory remarks today that he is going to speak in place of President Nelson's speaking spot tomorrow at conference. I'm not entirely sure, and I don't think we got communication-wise from him, was whether he's going to be reading President Nelson's remarks at that time, or is he going, or President Oaks going to be speaking his own remarks as the final concluding speaker at the final conference session, right? We're not entirely sure about that. I'm hoping that President Oaks will read President Nelson's message, and I hope that is the case. However, we didn't exactly get clear communication on that. However, we do know that he will be speaking at the last and final session. So yeah, we are excited about that. Also, something else that was pointed out is that there were very few things about the conference that changed after President Nelson's death in terms of speakers and music, besides President Oaks doing his introductory message, and then, of course, him giving a remark of some sort at the end of conference tomorrow, right? Those were like the two main changes that he pointed out, which were quite interesting, okay? This is a historic conference, and I'm grateful that they had an introductory message here just to kind of talk about everything that's happened. Okay, another interesting thing of note was that the Michigan shooting was mentioned a few times, some minorly mentioned, some were mentioned a little bit more openly. So yeah, we still send love out to those saints out there, and I'm glad that, we can come together as saints and make it openly acknowledged so that those saints out there in Michigan can receive those additional prayers and help that they need. So yeah, so that's kind of what I want to talk about there on that end. I want to go ahead and let's just go ahead and talk about something. So it's tradition on this channel that sorry, I'm trying to find the right screen here. All right, let's go here. Cool. It's tradition here that we will do a general conference bingo and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about temple predictions and yeah. So first of all, that is me at the conference center. So yeah, I was there Saturday afternoon session. First time, it was so powerful. I'll have a video talking about that coming out probably sometime later this month. Whenever I get time to edit, my schedule's all over the place. So yeah, it's just how it goes. So after 3 sessions today, we got a bingo. So I basically put this together, not exactly knowing how it would all go. If you do want to download this exact same bingo card, you can do that on my community post area of my channel. I have a Google Drive link for you guys to go ahead and download that if you want. So yeah, let's just go ahead and go through them really quick. Okay, airplane reference. Of course, Elder Uchtdorf, he started off his talk, which was a super good talk, by the way, with an airplane reference. So that was awesome. Quentin Elkick talked about growth in the church, and he specifically mentioned Africa. I think there was another speaker that also mentioned growth in Africa and other regions as well. Elder Gong had the funny jokes about fortune cookies. There were a few of the 70s emotions that built, especially pertaining to topics of the Savior Jesus Christ, and I think maybe one about President Nelson. Of course, President Nelson was mentioned at every single session. Jesus Christ was obviously mentioned at every session. There was a few speakers that minorly fumbled, but, if they're talking in front of, 10, 20,000 people in person, like, you have to give them some slack there. Like, right, that's intimidating, that's scary. Good for them getting out of their comfort zones and stuff, but we just always have to put that on there, okay? Next thing is Michigan shooting is mentioned. So yeah, that was mentioned a few times. And then, yeah, there was one technology hiccup. I don't exactly remember what it was. I'm pretty sure I had to deal with kind of the timing of the transitions and stuff. And there was one tiny spot of where it was just black screen, I think is what I was counting for that. I don't exactly remember. So yeah, we'll see how that all goes. Patrick Kieran did not unfortunately have a joke, so we weren't able to cross that one off. So yeah, we'll see. I'm highly confident that we'll get a temple in a new country where there hasn't been a temple. I'm highly confident that's going to happen. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll be highly wrong on that, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. There's always an opportunity for a miracle to be manifested. And pretty openly. I think we can pretty sure cross this one off now that they basically mentioned that a solemn assembly will not be held, and a new first presidency will not be announced, which would also mean that theoretically new apostle is not going to be announced either. Okay, we'll see. So yeah, we'll see of how this all plays out. I'm super excited though. Yeah, I'm super excited for the future of the church and everything. I have a lot of confidence that President Oaks here will carry on in the footsteps of President Nelson and his remarkable legacy that President Nelson had, right? So, yeah, let's just go ahead and move on to the top 20 temples here. I already did a video talking about the top 20 predictions for the temples in a recent video that I did. This is the list and everything here. Yeah, we'll see. Lahore, Pakistan was talked a little bit about today by, I believe it was Elder Jackson of the 70. I'm pretty sure he was the one that talked about that. So who knows? Maybe we'll get something there. I'm not sure. He probably doesn't know anything, but it was mentioned for once in conference, so I do find that quite interesting. There's been some additional information about Rigby that I've been able to gain just for being a Rigby native. So we'll see. I'm feeling a little bit more confident about Rigby with some additional information that's come out, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm not exactly wanting to spread that information right now because I don't want to be proven wrong. It's like one of those things, just like I don't want to say anything and that's not going to happen, right? So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot of exciting things that are going to happen here. A part of me wonders with the temple and no temples that are going to be announced. A part of me wonders if that's going to be mentioned in Elder Oaks talk or President Oaks talk. I always say Elder Oaks. It's President Oaks. My apologies. We'll see how that works. A part of me wonders if it's going to be mentioned within President Nelson. Again, I'm not sure if President Nelson's remarks will be read via President Oaks or if that will be done through video. I'm not sure. All we heard today at conference was that President Oaks was going to be giving some sort of remark at the end of last session. So yeah, we'll see how that all pans out. some way or another, I have a feeling that there will be temples announced at this conference. Okay, so I mean, time will tell of how this all plays out. I'm super excited here. If you want to check out the video that I have on my channel for the top 20 temple predictions, you can feel free to go over there and check that out. It was a very put together video, last second put together video, but I talked a little bit about some things you may not know. About a few of these different temples, maybe like location wise. We talked a little bit about maybe the political stance of the Lahore Pakistan temple, what it may take for that temple. We talked about the logistics sides of that. So, yeah. Yeah, I think overall, though, that today was a really historic and important general conference. There were a lot of topics that were discussed about. Yeah, let me just go ahead and pull up my notes really quick. I don't exactly want to show you everything that I have on my Discord, because for those that don't know, I do keep my notes of the general conferences on my Discord. So yeah, let's just go ahead and see. Okay, we start out Saturday morning. This was kind of the layout here of what was talked about. It was super productive and what they were able to talk about and everything. Some notes I was able to get more than others, mainly because at some points I was on a train and I had to listen through, my earbuds, or I was in a car and I couldn't exactly see everything that was going on. So yeah, there was just a lot of varied factors to things today. But we tried to get what we could done. So yeah, that's what happens. But yeah, today is definitely a historic conference. We'll definitely consider and we'll definitely continue on that legacy for tomorrow. As tomorrow will also be another historic day, especially whenever we will get to see if President Nelson will get his remarks read, his final remarks read, should I say, or, how temples will be announced, etc. We'll get to hear from President Holland, and a few different other people as well. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But anyways, I appreciate y'all for watching. This is kind of been my reaction to the Saturday sessions. We'll probably go live tomorrow talking about the Sunday sessions. I'm not entirely sure if I'll do one after the morning session or not. I probably will just go live after the afternoon session, just depending on how I'm feeling. But yeah, anyways, we got a whole lot coming tomorrow, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And yeah, I'll see you all next time, everyone. Thank you all. Go out there and make a difference. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe. Helps me out. So, anyways, thank you.